Hey friends, welcome back. I'm Karen, the Green Thumb Gourmet, and today I'm going to show you some essentials to have a successful spring garden. Everything you need to know, from what to do with your beds, what to start planting in spring and March. No matter what zone you're in, you would go by the same guidelines that I'm going to give you today, and we're going to go over a quick checklist of everything you need to do for your spring garden. So come along in the garden with me and let's get started. So first you want to clean up your garden beds by removing all weeds, dead leaves, or any other kind of debris, and clean that up so you can start amending your soil with compost and new soil. I usually put about 1 to 2 inches on just right on top of my other soil from before. As you plant for a season, you're harvesting things and pulling out some of the soil, and it also gets compacted. So it's always good just to add new soil and compost at the beginning of a season. And along with that, I go ahead and add in my balanced granular organic fertilizer. It's a slow release and it feeds all of my beds. So I always use that whenever I start a new season. And for my tomatoes and peppers and anything that's fruiting, or gives you any kind of vegetables other than greens, I always add bone meal to the bed. So that adds additional calcium that your plant is going to need. And I also add blood meal to give it a good shot of nitrogen for all those plants to get a very good start when they're first beginning to grow. And I have trouble with root knot nematodes. So they are turned off by the crab and lobster shells that I get from Neptune's harvest. So I always add that in my in-ground beds, not my raised beds, obviously, because they can't get to that, but anything that's in the ground or has access to the ground, then I would normally plant with the crab and lobster meal in there, just because it tends to keep them away. And I get a lot of those in my area for some reason. So try to do this ahead of time before it's time to put your transplants in, if you can. That gives the microbes in the soil a chance to break all this down and get the feeding started right away as soon as you put your transplants in. It's a great way to prepare your bed ahead of time. Then you're going to want to plan your garden layout. Select seeds or plants that are best suited for your climate. I have a video that I did just before this one about tomato and pepper varieties that do well in my climate. Plus, in the description, I'll have a link to my garden plan and all the varieties that I grow, any notes I've made about them, and when to plant and their harvest times. It's a lot of good, useful information. Just click the link and scroll down for the entire free list. Next, you're going to want to prune shrubs, trees, and any other plants to encourage healthy new growth. Assess what needs to be pruned, but wait a couple of weeks until the weather warms up a little and determine how much to prune, giving your new buds a chance to form. You might not need to trim off as much as you think due to the freeze damage, so give it a little bit to see if anything buds, and then you'll know exactly where to trim your plants. When you're able to, start seeds indoors for plants that require a longer growing season, like tomatoes and peppers in my case. It gets a jump on a good harvest and gives it a good long chance to germinate and grow before the early heat of summer hits here in Northeast Florida. Try to give those about 6 to 8 weeks before you actually want to put them in the ground. Take your average frost date and back it up about that time. And that'll give you enough time to have good sized transplants to put out when it warms up and all frost and freeze danger is past. And this is a good time to check and see if you need any additional gardening tools, supplies, fertilizers, your cages, your trellises, your towers. Purchase them ahead of time so you'll be ready to hit the ground running when you're ready for your spring planting. Also, order and purchase your bulk mulch or get the bags, whichever kind that you use from your big box store is fine. And it's also a good time to make any home remedies for pests or fungal treatments, anything that you normally use, your organic versions for your garden, to prepare them ahead of time. I usually keep hydrogen peroxide 3% on hand at all times because that's what I treat all my fungal issues with in the garden. So I always try to make sure I have plenty of that on hand before the season starts. Sure, you know what your last average frost date is, and then take that as your guide for when to put in your spring plants. It's very important to not jump the gun and put in those things too early. So definitely keep an eye on the weather forecast for anything like early freezes or late frosts, anything like that. You can direct sow these crops in March for zones 9 through 10. And these are your greens category. Kale is very hardy. You can sow in early spring or late summer. Lettuce, any kind, arugula, most lettuces like cool weather. They germinate quickly and you can get multiple harvests. Spinach also loves cool weather, so sow early in spring or very late fall. Mustard greens also do well this time of year. They repel root knot nematodes and they're a delicious addition to your garden. They do well in cool and a little bit warmer weather, depending on the variety. Still plant root veggies, bunching onions. You can basically plant spring onions all year long here if you have protection in the winter freezes. Beets prefer cooler temps and grow quickly, and you can use them for greens also, not just the roots. Carrots are great this time of year. They don't transplant as well, but they're best direct. So cover with cardboard or a box top and a light board of some kind after sowing and water well. Wait about 7 to 14 days, and when they germinate, take the board off. It's a nice little trick that will always give you a good germination rate. Radishes also love cool weather. It's a quick harvest in 30 days, and they great to succession plant them. Turnips like cooler temps for germination, sow in early spring or in the fall. We have lovely legumes. Peas, they are great at this time of year. Plant in very early spring. They adore cooler weather. They're also good in early fall. Beans, any kind of beans, sowing directly after your last frost date and direct sow as they grow very, very quickly and no need to start indoors. Other veggies you can start this time of year are squash. Make sure you direct sow both summer and winter varieties in early spring or late summer and grow in more temperate weather before the extreme heat of the southern climate starts or before the super cold of winter later on in fall. They're great that time of year also. They typically germinate super quickly. Pumpkins are also great for sowing direct sow in late spring for a harvest in the fall. And then my very, very favorite, cucumbers. Cucumbers are direct sow. They germinate very quickly. They enjoy warm soil and temperate weather in order to germinate, so they can survive and give fruit in the heat of early summer in zone 9B with some shade in the afternoon and protection from extreme heat and a southern summer sun. Choose varieties, though, that have been bred for disease resistance from the powdery mildew, mosaic virus, most common when it starts getting really hot here in late May and early June. That will give you a longer time to get a crop before the summer pests and funguses get to be too much. You can also choose parthenocopic and ganaceous varieties to grow on a porch or in a greenhouse or in any protected area. These varieties are self-pollinating and some have all female flowers, so you'll always get a crop. These are great, and I always grow some of these on my back screened area to get a steady supply of cucumbers, even in the heat. Click on the link in the description to my garden plan and scroll down and see some of the varieties that I am planting this year. They're great performers and they're very prolific. And as you can see, this is my guardian. He watches over my cucumber plants. And if any stray flies or anything come in my screened in area, he snatches them up for me. This is the infrastructure that I let my cucumbers, the vining kind, grow over this arch that I made. And I have another pal, Tinkerbell. She overlooks the garden too to make sure everybody's keeping in line. And some of the herbs you can grow this time of year are onion chives, garlic chives, basil, cilantro, and parsley. They like the cool, temperate weather this time of year. And for zone 9B, you could probably get one more harvest out of these cool weather veggies, provided you buy established transplants or start them indoors. If they're already 6 inches tall, you could probably have time to plant them out and get a harvest before the heat of the summer starts. That would be your broccoli, cauliflower, cabbage, Brussels sprouts, celery, those kind of crops. They take a long time to grow and they really don't like the heat before they bolt, so you would have to buy transplants if you wanted to start them now. And at the very beginning of March, you can plant out the following as long as they are transplants. It would be tomatoes, peppers, eggplants, All of those transplants have time to grow and get harvest before the really bad, typically super hot weather starts in early June. So those will give you a harvest before that time if you put your transplants out at the beginning of March right now. And once you have your garden all planted, I do what I call the peace walk. And what you should do is walk through your garden every single day, even if it's just for a few minutes. This walk through your garden each day can not only bring you a sense of pride, joy, hope, and excitement to see your hard work coming to fruition, it can also bring you a sense of peace, and it can bring your heart rate down. It could give you those few minutes in the fresh air to be in your own little corner of nature. It also gives you opportunity to spot any pests or potential problems that might come up in the garden before they get too bad in order to keep the plumbing humming. I try to do it every day, and it brings me a great deal of peace, weather permitting. And it definitely always helps me keep a good frame of mind, which is important in our day to day living, and to keep you in a happy state of mind. By following these steps, you'll set the foundation for a vibrant and productive spring garden, and it's a wonderful way to feed your family as well as feed your soul. I hope you've enjoyed this video and found something useful to help you with your garden adventure this spring. I am so happy that you took time to join me today, and I hope you join me again soon. Thank you all, and go out and make yourself a great day.